Jeremiah here with John Vergados, who's a board member at large of NORML Canada and also the longtime editor of Skunk Magazine. John, good to have you here.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I'm glad to be here, especially since we're promoting something that I think is so important for the upcoming elections at the in the NORML conference.
Right, so
I'm glad to see you guys promoting it. Sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to talk about NORML's Canadian National Conference, which is happening on September 26th in Toronto at Vapor Central.
Yes, at Vapor Central, it seemed to be the biggest, most accommodating place. Plus, Dom, who's behind it, has been supportive for many, many years, and he's been a leader in Toronto. So, I mean, it was a good place to do it. We've done some events at other vapor lounges like Joey's Underground Cafe in the past, and they just went through some new renovations, so it's sort of like a nice little launch for them and for us.
Yeah, that's great. We're, of course, very good friends with Chris Goodwin and Aaron and everybody at Vapor Central. Are you guys going to be televising this? I know Chris has the setup able to televise it online.
Yeah, we've been in contact yesterday, and he's going to be recording it for Pod TV. So a lot of the speakers, and I expect them to be pretty compelling because they're composed of some of the best legal minds and activists in Canada. Like we're bringing in John Conroy from Vancouver, and Craig Jones, our executive director, has been a longtime civil rights activist. I think he's former executive director of John Hopkins, which is prisoner rights here in Canada, and we also have Paul Lewin, who's another charter lawyer, who's also probably been the one most instrumental in revitalizing NORML in the last few years. Because for a bit it was stagnant. It was always existing here, but I think the fact that the Liberals came out with the platform of legalization sort of spurred us on into trying to create something a little bit more organized and more active. And Paul's been instrumental. And Alan Young is going to be their longtime charter champion, who's beat the government consistently as well, and has been vital in the medical marijuana fights. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty cool, as well as some local activists like Matt Murnaugh. I believe there's a women's panel composed of Sarah Sunday so far, Tracy Curley, and who was the other one? Sorry, I'm blanking right now. But, I mean, they've got some interesting things to say. And it's going to be overall a good time. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the upcoming election. It's more like last year's, you were there when we had it at Champs Canada. It was a massive undertaking, and we brought speakers from all over, including down south with Michaela Comstock, the young cancer survivor, and Keith Stroop, the founder of NORML. This year is going to be a little bit more low-key, but I think it's just as important because for the first time we essentially have a referendum on legalization. And I know that there's a lot in our community that don't trust the Liberals or I know there's a split vote, and NORML has traditionally been nonpartisan, but for the first time we actually have a federal election where one candidate says he's going to legalize. And my personal view is let them win. We hope they win. I hope they win. And even if they lie, like some people expect them to, or are a little bit skeptical, at least we can hold them accountable. And the alternative is really a lot worse. I'd rather have him lying than Harper telling me I'm putting you in jail. And it's so. I mean, and I know a lot of people are NDP sympathizers, but I think they're a little bit backwards still on their policies, and it's going to take way too long to implement. But I share Dana Larson's view that either one is better than what we do have, and I think both will eventually usher in legalization because you can't quell the tide anymore. It's all over down south. They see the economic benefits, the medical benefits, the societal benefits. Colorado is a great example. I mean, property values are actually going higher there. Crime's going lower. DUIs are lower. It's a much happier society, and I think that's what government's for.
Yeah.
So
well, it's just remarkable the amount of change that's actually happening that's tangible, that you can really even put a number on. Colorado is just a great example. I think, once these numbers start rolling in from all over the place, it's very hard to argue with those.
No, and they've been out there for a while. Like you look at Portugal, who essentially decriminalized 10 years ago, or more than a decade ago, and the evidence is in. I mean, it's a much not only people benefiting from not being busted for cannabis, but actually addicts who are much harder drugs are coming in for treatment. They're seeing that it's a gentler system that they can trust. And here we have completely the opposite. I mean, I'm primarily a cannabis activist kind of reformer, but I believe that all drug laws here in Canada need reform. I mean, there's no reason why we should be sending addicts to jail. And we've seen the disdain expressed by the government fighting Insight up there in Vancouver all the way. I mean, it's not it's a highness government for me when it comes to being compassionate towards people that often need it most. And I mean, it's time they go. I think the spirit of the land is suggesting they go. Our system, our political system, makes it a little bit harder this time around because there might be a split vote. But over 70% of the people in Canada want this government ended. And Harper's regime to finally be gone.
Well, yeah, he seems to be swimming against the tide. That's how these conservatives do it, I suppose. But yeah, I think finally the overwhelming wave is going to hit in this election. I sure hope so. Anyways, John,
Same here.
Yeah, I wanted to get into a little bit about NORML Canada because you were mentioning how you guys have sort of been revamping things there after a bit. NORML has been going on in the United States for 40 years plus. What is NORML Canada exactly? How does that differ from NORML US?
Well, I mean, initially I believe that they probably started from the same place. I know John Conroy's been probably the head here for a long time. I mean, it's a pretty old group here in Canada. I think it dates back to 74, or maybe a little bit later. The thing where I think they differed the most is that the two had very different battles to wage. In the U.S., in some respects, it was a much dirtier fight where people would lose everything. And I know it's happened here, but there was a little bit more prevalent. It's more about making money there. I mean, we don't have time to do this just on this one segment, but it covers every aspect of society in the U.S., which is hyper-capitalized. They make money off of everything,
right,
including jail, justice, medicine, poison, whatever you want. They'll make money from it, and the penalties were harsh. People were going away for 30 years for nonviolent crimes. I mean, they just released Jeff Smazinski, and again, he just served over 20. He was looking at a life sentence until he got clemency. But in Canada, I believe it's a different. And we had once the charter came in, it ushered a whole new wave here. And the fact that it's been primarily a medical fight has, with every court battle centering around medical users, I think it made NORML a little bit. It wasn't the same mandate. We were looking initially at decrim here. Very close at one point, and it didn't seem to be the same fight, although a lot of people did suffer. And we've had access here for a while for medical patients. But if you do look a little deeper, you'll see that the people that are on the NORML board, like John Conroy, Kirk Tusaw, Alan Young, have not only been fighting based on charter, but they've been fighting for the medical patients all along. And I think the fact that the medical fight took foreground here in Canada, I think that's why you see NORML evolved in a different way. And like I said, recently there seems to be a new resurgence, and it's not only because of our efforts. It's a lot of volunteers that have volunteered recently at NORML. A lot of the younger group that are really committed, really dedicated, and are really super. I mean, we've got some electoral campaign strategies that are being spearheaded by this younger group that are just phenomenal. And this is just some of the stuff that you're going to see at the conference on Saturday. People are working really hard to get our community to vote. And while NORML's stance is vote for the Liberals because we're endorsing them because of the fact that they're endorsing legalization. Just get out there and get Harper out, at the minimum, because he's been hostile to us, and not only hostile to us, but to the judiciary, which is supposed to be independent, because they're ruling against him. And that should never happen in a democracy like ours.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so the position from NORML Canada is it's an official endorsement of the Liberals then?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we've come together for this political rally. It's not, I mean, we're endorsing them strictly, like I said, because they're for legalization. Now, I know there's other issues that have come up in the last while, like C-51, where I believe they made a mistake, Mm-hmm. But it's, and I hate to say like this, I don't like to play the pragmatic card, but that's politics. I mean, I don't expect anything different from Mulcair. I mean, he's shown, that he's ready to switch allegiances or positions. I mean, here in Quebec, remember, he's from Quebec, so he's a staunch federalist throughout his career, and ever since he joined the NDP, all of a sudden he's making it easier for Quebec separatists. Now, I don't care what side you're on, but I mean, it's an about face. And people are allowed to change their mind. But when I look at the Liberals, I know they've made mistakes. I think personally that it's to appease the middle. That might be perceived, they don't want to be perceived as a little soft. But I think all three parties are basically in it to get power. And I'm happy, and that's why I endorse the fact that they've said that in order to get in power, they see legalization as a way to do it. And
right.
My endorsement's official.
Well, and I agree, and I think that what you say about them doing this strictly for this whole power grab idea, in the past where the NDP, I think, has been the party that kind of was the one who stayed more in the interest of the people, the little guy, and that kind of stuff. On this issue, the marijuana one, they seem to be playing politics with it. Like, I don't know if you saw the latest zinger, quote unquote, from Thomas Mulcair aimed at Justin Trudeau in the Globe and Mail debates about pot.
Yeah,
did you see that? Yeah. So
yeah, he basically said everything we need to know about how he really feels on pot. You know what I mean? And that's a big gaffe in mine. But they're trying to score points for sure. And I believe, like some people think that the NDP policy eventually will be good on cannabis. I also believe that the Liberal policy on C51 can't stand. And I don't even think the courts are going to uphold it either. Just like we've seen in the cannabis fight. I think a lot of the legislation that the Harper government has erected won't last for much longer. Because as soon as they don't stand up to charter scrutiny, they've consistently lost. So I'm not too worried about C51, but I am worried about Mulcair saying we need another decade to study whether cannabis is good for you. You know what I mean? While being hammered with all this evidence around it.
Right. I mean, how many studies can we do? I mean, we've done the studies.
It's the most researched plant, medicine, in the history of the world. Yet they say there's nothing to suggest that it's good for you. And it's disingenuous. They haven't figured out how to make money on it yet, and that's why it remains illegal. There's too much money to be made on prohibition.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing. I think when I first joined NORML, it was to be for a very short time. I thought that our only mandate was to legalize, But as we've been analyzing the election, it's true. I mean, I think the Liberals want to do the right thing. I said this the other day on another program, but I don't think they really know what the right thing is, and it's up to us to hold them to it and to tell them what the right thing is. Like we saw it when in this week when Joy Davies resigned on principle, and the way it was handled. I mean, she should be allowed to speak her mind. In many ways, she knows a lot more than what her party platform is. I think it's like another gaffe trying to appeal to the middle once more. And I think, like what I was saying before, is that I was only going to be on NORML for a little short while, ushering legalization, and then, I thought NORML wouldn't be needed. But I see right now there will be a need. Because after it, we can't trust them to do what's good for us. We have to, we're hoping that when we say NORML is partisan right now, we're endorsing the Liberal candidate, it's not unconditional. It's basically assuming that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. We want eventually, and this is Paul Lewin's baby kind of thing, to become sort of like a cannabis NRA, where they're scared of our block vote, or if not our block vote, they're scared of the people that support us, in the sense that they have to take us into account when they want to be elected. That's what we want eventually. So we want to build NORML is not just a single issue, but after that, it's to represent our whole community, and so diverse, from the med patient to producers. And one thing I want to say, what's different recently with this whole new group, in the past, NORML has been content with decrim, because in the past it's been a much slower fight or evolution.
Right.
But now it's clear in our mission statement that NORML supports, there is no legalization without personal growth. Basically, we support the right for people to be able to grow at home. Maybe regulated, maybe unregulated, but we do. It's not like in the past where we were content to just have a regulatory system.
Now,
we do support the growth. How
does that translate into the current battle or the current landscape over medical marijuana with the LPs versus local dispensaries and that whole thing? Is NORML supporting the LPs?
We don't really take a position on the LPs, but I can tell you my personal stance is that I don't mind that the LPs are there. I mean, there's going to be hopefully there's going to be a very open market with like 500,000 consumers, that are going to be doing this. We're going to need a lot of sources. Let the LPs service the middle or the mainstream or the people that don't know. But if you're in the know, I'd like you to have a choice. And that could be from your neighbor growing, or you guys can be trading or whatever. I want a microbrewery model where people can get into this industry that don't have to be LPs. I mean, this is the system we want. I don't mind the LPs as long as it's not an exclusive system like it is right now. There's going to be a lot of demand. Let the LPs supply a lot of the demand. Let the connoisseur growers supply the connoisseur market. Let the home grower supply himself. That's the kind of system I think most of NORML wants to see. Mm-hmm. But there's no issue with the LPs. The only issue I have personally is that they want to get rid of the dispensary model. I would love the dispensaries to have the choice whether to buy from the LPs if they could.
Right.
Because I think they're going to get their act together. They're going to be growing good cannabis eventually, if they're not doing so right now.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. It didn't look too promising, unfortunately, but I think that will change. And like you say, I don't understand, there's room for everyone if everyone has the opportunities. At this point, it's a monopoly, but if it was more open and people could grow at home, then the LPs that would be fine.
Right. And I think there's a need for the dispensary model in some form. I mean, people that are stricken with cancer shouldn't have to do all the research by themselves with no help, and then have to go to an LP and wait for their baggie, and the LP not being able to tell them anything about what that strain does. There's a need for a dispensary. There's people that have been through this for a long, long time. They've been studying how cannabis works more than anybody else for the last 15, 20 years. So, to cut them out of the system completely is not something that's good for Canadians. It's not something we want to see. And that's a different fight brewing. And I don't know where it's coming from. I think it's Pamela McCall that's like making a lot of phone calls and trying to shut this down, this whole dispensary model for material reasons. But I want to see a future with dispensary. If I got sick, I'd like to know that I can go somewhere where they can give me some knowledge, not just the paper, and then a phone number where I can get my medicine, and then I have to research what it's good for. That's not what medicine is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and oh man, you mentioned Pam McCall. Wow, she is just a one-woman lobby group. My goodness.
She's more than one woman. She's just a face. I just wish she would pick on something else.
Well, and
there's
you're
a lot
right.
of harm being caused by alcohol and other things, and the food. That's another thing against government and over-regulation of this plant. We've trusted them to regulate our food, our air, our fuel. They haven't really done a good job, so I don't really trust them to handle our cannabis either.
I'm kidding. So. Well, and about Pam, as you say, she's backed by Big Pharma and those groups. That's where some of that cash is coming from. So.
Yeah, I've heard she's with SAM, right, which is the right. Kennedy kind of association, who just thinks that the next wave is to open a whole bunch of marijuana rehab clinics, right?
Right,
I think that's
exactly.
where the money's come from.
Yeah, they happen to have heavy investments.
No, she's pretty transparent. Unfortunately, she's pretty tenacious, too. And she's getting a lot of airplay, and she's actually getting some results. But
right.
I don't know.
I think we're seeing some positive developments on that side, though. How she was harassing the police forces in other places, like in Winnipeg or elsewhere, and getting those places shut down. But the police in Vancouver have publicly said that they are not going to investigate her complaints, or it was a very specific one. They overturned it, so that's positive.
Yeah, no, I heard that the other day as well. I think they just announced it that they got other crimes to handle, or other more dangerous substances to patrol.
Exactly.
They know. The police in Vancouver have been pretty cool for a while now. Except when they're directed by their superiors to intimidate.
Exactly. Now, John, I did want to talk to you about Skunk Magazine as well. Take one hat off, put on the other here. You're the longtime editor of Skunk. You guys are still, we were just talking about some stuff that you guys are working on there. Can you tell us about Skunk Magazine and what's going on there?
Yeah, we just closed out our 10th year, and a lot of changes are coming. We just, for the last maybe 6 months, we've gone digital. You're able to get the magazine digitally now for people that don't find it in their stores, or for people that prefer to treat it in a way that I can't understand. But it's starting to do well on the digital side. We're about to revamp our new website, and I know I've been saying that for a bit, but it's been a terrifying experience because I was telling you before, it never ends. You know, it's not in the magazine. I've got a certain number of pages to fill. I fill them, and then I go to bed. In the website, it doesn't. It never ends. It's infinite. So,
yes.
So it's making me kind of crazy. So, but I think the way I've got it handled is that for the first at least the 6 months, because we've got 10 years of content that many people have never seen. I think we're going to do like a 6-month retrospective and start releasing past articles, some cool stuff that we've done in the past, just so people can see the evolution from day one to what we've become, you know. And for the first 6 months until we get into the live vlogging aspects, it'll probably be more like a retrospective. And we're doing some pretty cool things there too. We're establishing, Julie is my partner and is handling sales and marketing here, as well as our retail kind of card. We're putting together a philanthropic retail card where a portion of proceeds goes to certain causes. Like we just did one with grinders that were custom built for normal women's eyes and down in the U.S. And every 25% of every purchase goes to them. And we're doing that with many different products. So when we launch the website, expect to have like a whole new kind of way of doing business too. We're trying to carry good products from companies that give back. You know?
Cool, man. Well, it's exciting to see you guys coming along. And we'll definitely keep in touch with you about everything. Glad to hear that the conference will be broadcast on Pot TV. That's fantastic. But definitely keep in touch about everything, and we'll have you back on the show again soon to talk about the election. I think we're going to see some of that stuff heat up soon. This Mulcair Trudeau back and forth was kind of interesting, so we'll see how that. You know, I've been seeing a lot of what the pot community thinks about this election, and people are going back and forth. There's that whole, you know, because of the C-51 thing, a lot of pot community people don't really like that at all. But when you hear Mulcair saying some of that kind of stuff, you know, you can see where he's really going with this. So
I just think as a cannabis user, I think, you know, you got to suspend sometime. You're not going to get it all, but you finally got a federal candidate for the first time in history saying full-scale legalization. What that means, we'll see. But, I mean, the other two are not giving us anything close to that. And yesterday, Mulcair proved the fact that he doesn't really believe that it's a medicine. I would, you know, if he's making cracks like that, I don't think he really takes our cause seriously.
Right. Well, and you know, when he first was elected as the leader of the NDP, he came out and said that he thought marijuana causes schizophrenia and a bunch of other crazy stuff.
Yeah, and it's much stronger than it used to be. It's not your, you know, all the old cliches. It's not your grandfather's marijuana, all that.
Right.
Like I said, I have to go with my gut and go, and my head actually, not with my gut, and vote for the party that says they're going to make our lives a lot easier. You know, we're not going to be this marginalized segment of society. I've been to the U.S. many, many times, and I've seen the markets. I've been to Denver. I've been to California. I know, like, it's a gentler society when it comes to cannabis. You know, it's a lot easier to access. It's a thriving industry. I mean, it's the most innovative industry. It's pretty cool to see what's happening once it's relaxed, you know. And I expect, and Canada is a perfect place. I mean, I think we have one of the highest per capita rates of use in the world. I mean, it's been part of our culture for a long, long time. You know, it's about time, because we've been sort of leader, well, before Harper on other issues, other social justice issues. We had gay marriage way before the U.S. It's about time we right this wrong, too.
Absolutely. John, thank you very much for coming on. John Vergados, NORML Canada and Skunk Magazine. Check them out online at norml.ca and skunkmagazine.com. John, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Keep up the great work, man. You're one of the hardest working guys in this movement. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much, man. You too, man, for sure. Love you lots, and we'll talk soon, brother.